I have had Jim Beard on the History Podcast, Comics Fantastic History, talking about his anthology from last year, Jack of All Comics, and I've had several of those guests there. But I also do an indie show for creators and publishers. So I thought I would bring Jim back to talk about the publishing side of Becky Books and Flinch Books. Got him correctly. So
Good
tell them
job.
a little bit about the editorial work and things that you've been doing there and as an editor and a curator and a little bit about that type of stuff.
Yeah, all of that grew out of, I almost hate to say this, it all grew out of me working with other publishers and finding things that I said, I want to do that thing right there my way. Flinch Books was first. Just last year we celebrated 10 years of publishing, me and John Bruning, my publishing partner out of Cleveland, Ohio. And he felt the same way. We could do this better. We could do this better. We could do this better. We could have the best covers ever. We could have better editing, maybe cut down on typos and all of that, and content that maybe people are not getting elsewhere within the pulp fiction publishing world. And like I said, we celebrated 10 years of that. We do 1 to 2 books a year. The old saying of we will serve no wine before it's time or something like that. We always say we will publish no book before it's time. We're not interested in having 100 books out there. We're interested in having the very best books that we can possibly do when we both have full-time jobs.
So what type of
Becky
books do
Books.
no, I'm sorry, but with Flinch Books, what kind of books do you guys put out before we go to
So
Becky?
John and I are both fans and also writers of pulp style fiction. And I'm assuming you know what pulp is.
Yes, I do know what pulp is, though some of
Okay.
the other younger
Okay.
fans might not know, but yeah,
I know. Yeah, Ron, I'm sorry because sometimes I say that you can see the blank look that goes on.
no,
Yeah,
and it's hard
in the
to
style of
do
the
that,
old
yeah.
pulp magazines, for those
Right.
who don't know. It's basically story-driven fiction, quick, fast-paced, quick adventure, action. Get to the end of the chapter, and you want to go on to the next chapter with interesting characters and all of that. So we've taken that style, and there's a small community of us who write in that style today, but we've been adapting it to different things that maybe they wouldn't have thought of in the 30s and 40s.
So with the Flinch
So
imprint, do you guys bring in comic book creators?
we've developed a kind of a stable of creators that we worked with, but we look around and we say, who do we really like what they're doing, and we bring in new people. It's a lot of people who do what we do, a lot of fiction writers, but some of them have written for comics. You mentioned him just a little bit ago to me, Bobby Nash. Not only is Bobby an incredible pulp fiction writer, but he also has written comic books, and there's a few others there. It's not so predominantly comic book people, but they are probably most likely people who grew up on reading comics. Here, Will Murray. Will Murray's worked for us a couple different times. Will's known for the taking over Doc Savage in the modern era of those novels, but Will did a lot of comic book work. Will is actually the co-creator of Squirrel Girl
That I did
for
not know about.
for Marvel Comics. Yeah, he and Steve Ditko created Squirrel Girl. But anyways, that's what we do. We just fiction, and we do both. John and I both have our own characters that we do series of. Me, Sergeant Janice, his is the Midnight Guardian. Flinch is the home for that series of novels, those series of novels. But then we also do fiction anthologies, and our goal is we do anthologies that are again as different as we can get from the other type of stuff that's out there. And we try, and we think that we have some of the best covers around, and we've actually been told that when we're at shows, when people go by. And Becky Books grew out of a different mindset, and it started pretty much in 2020, and it was a way to do my own things, but really predominantly it was the kick in the ass that I needed to get back into what I do after the death of my wife in 2019, which is why it's called Becky Books, named after and in honor of Becky. And that really started with nonfiction books. And I have two different nonfiction series, one of which you know well, which is the comic book culture one, because Jack of all comics is part of that. And I'm actually working on, we're up to four books in comic book culture. I'm actually working on a fifth one right now. But it also then developed into fiction. And people sometimes say to me, like, why do you have two publishing houses that both do fiction? Why don't you just do all the fiction with Flinch books? Becky Books fiction is things that, to my mind, don't fit into the Flinch universe. And that's maybe a little nebulous and hard to describe, but whereas I have a very vocal partner in John at Flinch Books, which is great, I have what I call my silent partner in Becky Books, which Becky Books is like books that she would have thought were really cool and topics and themes and things like that. So every time I come up with an idea, I run it through the filter of my memories and ask her, would you have liked this book? Would you have liked this idea? And if the answer is yes, then I do it. If the answer is no, then it's not a Becky Books thing. There will never be a book on Star Wars published by Becky Books. God love her, but that was the one of the things that we never agreed on is I love Star Wars and she was not a Star Wars. Oh,
Do you ever talk to Becky and go, Becky, that was a good idea, but you missed the mark on this one for some of the stuff you put out?
no, most of the time I don't have these like bars of success to hit. My success is it's published. I'm the type of guy that I still feel very low tech, a Luddite. And when I'm actually able to open up a box from Amazon and pull out a book that has my name on it and her name on it, and sometimes other people's names on it, I say, all right, it's already a success. Even if it only sells 10 copies somewhere, that's still a win for me because it's done. It's out of my head and it's either an ebook or it's a published book. So no, I don't think anything was really a failure. I've had books that have sold buku of copies. This is one of them, our book about Dark Shadows. This is actually Becky Books's best-selling book.
When did it come out?
I'm sorry.
When did it come out originally?
Let's look at the copyright page, 2022. This is the most heavily inspired by Becky because I'm not necessarily a Dark Shadows fan. I like it enough, and we watched it together. When I met her, she was the biggest Dark Shadows fan anywhere, and that was a huge part of her childhood. And she used to tell me that she ran home from school to watch Dark Shadows. It was on at 3:30 in the afternoon originally, or something like that. And I thought that was really fun. And then as we got more on the internet and met more people and all of that, I started to hear that phrase from people. I love Dark Shadows. I ran home from school to watch it. And I remember saying to her, like, that's not like a phrase that's unique to you. Did you know that? Like people are saying that all over the place. So that's why the book is called Running Home to Shadows. But this is a good example of something that I would only do at Becky Books and I wouldn't really do it anywhere else. And then I have a couple books that maybe I've sold 2 dozen copies of.
But I'm curious, I want to go for a minute behind the scenes because I know
Yeah,
you and Bobby Nash and Bob Greenberger, with
no.
Bob Greenberger's involved with the Crazy Eight Press, you guys have all set up your own little ecosystem of your own publishing thing. How hard is it for somebody to do what you guys have done?
Maybe I'm biased, but surprisingly easy. I always use me as an example to people who say, I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how to do this, and I don't know how to do this. And I go, guess what? I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. And I don't know how to do that either. But here I am with Flinch Books is now sitting at 15 published books with a 16th coming out. Becky Books, I believe, we're around 2 dozen books already. And we did it. Ron, the secret to me is that I seek out and surround myself with people who can do the things that I can't do. There are things that I can do. People will debate me on this, but I can write and I can edit. But I can't do the illustrations for the cover. I can't work in Adobe and make PDFs and stuff like that. I can make a Word document. That's pretty easy. But again, it's finding those people who can do those things and that you can create a relationship with and work with them to get you over the finish line. And then they say, I don't have the money to do that. Honestly, neither do I. I do set aside some small sums of money to pay cover artists, to pay my formatter, and also give a small stipend to my essayist or my writers or whatever, because I believe that's important to do that, to give them something. But really good artists who will not break the bank, they're out there and they want to work. It's you have to find them and again, build a team and have everybody support everybody else, and it gets you over the finish line. Uploading to Amazon is absolutely free, and all the technology is there. The platform is there, it has instructions. If I can do that, anybody can do that. You need a Word document to make an ebook. I can do that. Whoop-de-doo, you upload it and it's there. I have this amazing formatter. She does both Flinch books and Becky books. She can build the PDF for the print edition. And then I look through it and I say, yes, that's exactly how I want it, or no, I need you to change that. Put on the editor hat and do all that. And then you just upload it and boom, you have a book. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but not much. Again, I'll go back to where I began, which is if I can do it, nearly anybody can do it. There really isn't any excuses in 2026 for that I can't have a book of my own. Well, baloney, you can. And I advocate for self-publishing all the time.
So you got various projects running around there. What if somebody's like listening to this and go, what? How can they best contribute to you? What do you look for things? Do you reach out or do you have people? Do you reach
Yeah,
out or how's that work?
I do more stuff by invitation than I do open calls. This is going to sound a little harsh. Open calls are a little dicier of a proposition because you're going to have to devote more time to going through things that you get. And I hate to say this, you're going to get a fair amount of material that may not be up to the standard that you want or whatever. But if you go into it knowing that, then that's just the way it's going to be. There are a lot of writers out there who believe they're at the level that they need to be to work professionally, and maybe they're not. One of the things that, of the two things that when people say, what's your advice to writers? To young writers, and one of them is don't allow your mother to read your stuff, because what's going to happen is she's going to tell you that you're great. And whoever, your sister, your father, your husband, your wife, and whoever, they're all going to tell you that you're great and that it's the best thing that they ever read. And chances are that's not going to be true. And you're going to go out into the world and make a fool of yourself for that matter. And you don't want that at all. So going back to the original question is for Flinch books, I don't think we've ever done an open call. We know so many writers in our, even though it's a small community, that we're probably never going to run out of. Every once in a while, someone will approach us and say, "Hey, I'd really like to write for you," which is an incredible compliment to us because I think that they're seeing that we're doing something that they like the looks of or like to what they've read. But, and it's almost the same for Becky Books. I pretty much know who I can go to. Bobby's a good example. Bobby Nash is a good example. I can go to him, fiction or nonfiction, and he's been in so many of my books. He's one of these guys who can pretty much write anything, and he has a lot of interest. Frank Schildner's another great example. I can go to Frank. I probably work with Frank more than almost any other writer that I know of other than John, that he can do just about anything, and he has so many interests. And again, fiction, nonfiction. He's a diverse guy, and so is Bobby. What can I do? Like when the guy who wrote all of the modern Doc Savage novels comes up to you and says, "What can I do?" You go, "I'm going to create something just for you, buddy."
You know,
So
go on.
yeah, people can approach us, but I would say if you do, be ready to say, this is what I've done already. When you should prove that you have the chops and that you can do it. It sounds elitist, but again, we're quality, not quantity.
You were talking about the elitist thing, and we were talking about Bobby Nash, and because I've been doing the podcast now for like 5 years and running multiple podcasts, I'm really
Yeah.
picky and choosy on who I bring onto the podcast. For the 250th show, that I've got coming out, Bobby Nash was actually late for the show. Joe and I are like, let's just create a show. And we ad-libbed the show. And I don't want talking heads. You sit there for 15 minutes and you go, oh my God, there's no point. But Bobby Nash and Joe Crow are of the caliber, you can bring them on at any
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
And then boom, with the
Yep.
knowledge. It's not that you're elitist. It's not I'm an elitist, but you want the people that are either reading or listening to get good quality
Yes.
feedback for the fans. And that's the whole thing. That's
Yes.
why I brought up Bobby Nash. But back to having people on the show, on my back end, I often bring up it's
Uh,
that balance of trying to find the right people. And it's not, when I do a show, it's not, oh, look, I've got Megan on, I've got Kitson on. Oh, look, I've got David Pepos. It's not the bragging rights of that. It's me bringing on these things so fans have a different voice to talk about comic books. Not everybody reads Speed Racer. Not everybody
hey,
reads,
absolutely.
and that's my thing. It's for the fans, not for me going, hey, I've had Phil Hester on, or I had Jim Zub on.
Yeah, you have lots of different people who listen to your show. We have lots of different readers who are interested in our books, and we're not going to keep putting out the same old thing because we're going to have this very narrow spectrum of customers, readers, whatever. I hope that if people laid out all the Flinch books and all the Becky books, for one thing, they're going to see some commonalities. They're going to see these names that keep cropping up. And if they ever said to me, why do you have those people in 75% of your books? And I'll say, because I know they're going to always say something interesting. They always did, they always have, and I know that they always will. I can trust them to be the ones that if we do get a review that people say, oh, I really so and so's contribution. And we get all these different voices. And so in many ways it's just like what you're saying, about your show.
Because you're right. That's why I brought Bobby Nash and Joe Crow back a few times because it's of the value they bring. And that's what I want. I don't want some fanboy coming in and just giving me their opinion of the latest whatever. And I don't want people to
Right.
come
It's
in and,
trash. I
yeah,
hate it.
yeah. And I don't want people coming in and just trashing a comic book because that's not what I do
Yeah.
either. So
Yeah.
it's that good balance. Before we just wrap this up, I have one more question. You had a book that recently celebrated, I think its second anniversary. Is that correct? Which one was that of the Becky books? Was it the team up or
Oh, what would that be? That's probably maybe the Brave and the
I
Bold
think it was
book.
the Brave and the
Yeah,
Bold that
it
you
is. No, yeah.
so tell the fans a
And
little bit about
Becky,
that since it's the second
yeah, you had
anniversary.
said that to me. There's Becky Books has three different series actually going. Fiction, in fact, is the DC Jones series. It just came out with the fifth volume of that. But the two nonfiction ones are the Memories series, and then I don't have the example of it, is the comic book culture one. The first book that I did for that is I think it's the Brave and the Bold book. So it's called Breaking Bold and Brave.
Yes.
It's a play on Breaking Bad, but and it's a tribute to the DC legendary comic book series, The Brave and the Bold, which a lot of people don't realize actually started in the 1950s and ran until I think it's 1983. As a kid, that was one of my all-time favorite series. I loved it because I love Batman and I love seeing Batman with all these other great characters out of DC. The interesting thing is that the Batman team ups didn't really start until the 60s, around the time of the Batman TV series. But there's all this stuff before that. Literally in that book lay out the whole history of the Brave and the Bold, and I do like little file dossiers on every single issue. It's 200 issues, and all the way from number one, the first year or two or so of the series, it was just action, or pardon me, adventure stories. It was like Viking Prince and the Silent Knight, and there was some Robin Hood stories in there. Interesting stuff, but people didn't really know about it, people today. Then it goes into like these tryouts. Hawkman debuted, the Silver Age Hawkman debuted in the book, the Justice League debuted in the book, and Metamorpho, a couple other different things. Then it started into the team up stories, but not with Batman, with weird combinations like the Flash and the Martian Manhunter, or the Flash and Doom Patrol, or whatever. Then they finally figured out that Batman was really popular, and then that lasted until the very end. And then interspersed between all the dossiers of the issues are essays about different aspects of the comic that I thought were really interesting, like about who were the editors, about Bob Haney, who wrote the majority of the issues of that comic book, a little tribute to Jim Aparo, the guy that worked with Haney the most on it, and things like that. I even have a little interview with Alan Brenner, who wrote some of my most favorite single comic books ever. Have you ever interviewed him, by the way?
No. In fact, when we
Oh,
get done, I'm picking your brains on possible
yeah,
guests.
he's
I'm making
he's
notes.
amazing. It's funny, his comic book career is small, but what he did is amazing. But then he also worked in like Hollywood or whatever, and then he's a novelist. Now, if you have the chance, Alan is an incredible guy. I did a little Q&A with him for that. But so that then I did the same sort of thing for Marvel Team Up. There's a Walking the Wider Web is the tribute to Marvel Team Up. Right now, I'm working on the tribute to DC Comics Presents, which, for those who don't know, is the Superman team up book that ran from about 77, 78 until 86, right around the time Crisis on Infinite Earths. And someday, maybe I'll do one on Marvel 2 and 1. But that's kind of off in the distance.
Off the thing.
But I'm so excited because that Brave and the Bold book just took off, and there were more people who were interested in it than I ever imagined. And the cool thing was is that every single one of them have come back and said, I thought I knew everything, about Brave and Bold or whatever, and I learned some stuff. There were so many people who said, I really had no idea what was in the first few years of the book in the 1950s. And wow, that was really interesting. When people say stuff like that, then I've done my job.
Jim Beard, Becky Books, Flinch Books, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much.
Hey, anytime. Like I said to you before, any day that I can talk about myself is a good day.
Thanks again.
Thank you.